You think closure is the final step of healing. No. In toxic relationships, closure is often just one last disguise for hope. You tell yourself you need answers. You tell yourself you need a final conversation. You tell yourself you need to understand what happened. But what you usually want is something far more dangerous. For the person who wounded you to be the one who finally relieves the wound. It is finally over. The illusion shattered. The door closed. You survived. So why does it feel like you are dying? Because leaving a toxic relationship is not just a breakup, it is a detox. For months, maybe years, your nervous system was flooded with cortisol and adrenaline, punctuated by intermittent drops of dopamine. Chaos became the rhythm. Uncertainty became the stimulant. Relief became the reward. And now the chemical pattern has stopped, but your body has not yet understood that silence is not danger. That is why the aftermath can feel so humiliating. The relationship is over. The evidence is obvious. The mask has slipped, and still your mind keeps circling back to one final wish. Maybe one more conversation will make it all make sense. You tell yourself, if he would just explain it, I could let it go. And that sentence sounds mature. It sounds emotionally responsible. It sounds like closure. But it is usually relapse in more sophisticated clothing. Because you do not want information. Not really. You already have information. You know he lied. You know he withheld. You know he twisted your reality, starved your nervous system, and trained your attachment to survive on fragments. What you want is for the person who caused the confusion to be the one who finally removes it. That is the myth of the last talk. You sit in your head and write the scene as if it were still possible for reality to become generous. You imagine yourself calm, clear, devastatingly articulate. You picture yourself laying out the evidence one final time. Why did you lie? Did any of it mean anything to you? I'm not here to fight. I just need closure so I can move on. And in the fantasy, something miraculous happens. He finally sees the pain. He finally drops the mask. He apologizes. He explains. He returns your dignity in a cleaner form than he took it. The humiliation softens. The story closes. You walk away healed. But this is the trap. You are not asking for understanding. You are asking the arsonist to help you put out the fire. And people like Julian understand this better than you do. They know you are still waiting by the door psychologically, even if you claim the relationship is over. They know clean endings remove access. They know real closure would cost them control. So they do not give you truth. They give you continuation. Not a confession, not accountability. A breadcrumb. A message appears. Thinking of you today. Hope you're okay. I just need some time to sort my head out. Look carefully at the architecture of that sentence. It takes no responsibility. It answers none of your questions. It explains nothing. It centers his needs, preserves his ambiguity, and quietly feeds off your availability. And still your body reacts. He's thinking of me, you tell yourself. He just needs time. That is how the wound stays open. Not through open cruelty this time, but through vague, deniable warmth. Just enough to keep hope breathing. Just enough to make you postpone the funeral of the fantasy. This is why closure becomes such a dangerous word in toxic dynamics. It sounds like an ending, but in practice it often functions as a bridge back into contact. It is hope wearing the language of maturity. It is longing wearing the mask of self-respect. And if you have already spent months translating reality into something survivable, you will do it here too. You will tell yourself the breadcrumb means remorse. You will tell yourself the silence means confusion. You will tell yourself the vagueness means complexity. You will keep decoding because decoding feels more bearable than accepting the brutal simplicity of what already happened. But there comes a point when the structure finally reveals itself. You look at the message again. No accountability, no repair, no direct answer, no grief for what he did to you. Just another carefully measured fragment designed to keep you emotionally available without requiring anything real in return. And this is the moment the whole system turns. The disrespect was the closure. The silence was the answer. The betrayal was the explanation. That is what most people do not want to hear, because it sounds too stark, too cold, too final. But closure was never hidden in some better sentence he forgot to send. Closure was already present in the way he handled your pain, in the way he evaded reality, in the way he protected himself at your expense, in the way he made your confusion useful to him. There is no hidden meaning left to decode. The man in the mirror was always an illusion, and once that lands, the work changes. You stop asking, how do I get him to explain himself, and start asking the only question that actually belongs to you. Why am I still negotiating with someone who benefits from my confusion? That is the beginning of real closure, not a conversation. A decision. A decision to stop participating in your own destruction. A decision to stop mistaking access for intimacy. A decision to stop treating the fantasy as unfinished business. A decision to grieve not only the person, but the version of the future you built around them. Because that is what makes closure feel so brutal. You are not just losing the relationship, you are losing the imaginary repair it promised. The final conversation was never only about answers. It was about the hope that maybe all the suffering could still be retroactively justified by some redemptive truth at the end. But no manipulator can give you that without surrendering the very structure that made the relationship possible. If they were capable of giving you clean truth at the end, they would have been capable of giving you reality during the relationship. The final silence is not an exception to the pattern. It is the pattern completing itself. So you lock the door, not because it feels empowering in some cinematic way. Usually it doesn't. Usually it feels ugly, flat, withdrawn, anticlimactic. Usually it feels less like triumph and more like withdrawal. But that is what healing often looks like at first. Not peace, absence, not certainty, emptiness, not relief, detox. And slowly the chemistry begins to change. The nervous system stops waiting at the window. The mind stops rehearsing impossible conversations. The body stops treating the absence of chaos like a threat. You start to understand that what felt like unfinished business was often just addiction grieving its supply. You do not need their permission to lock the door. You do not need their confession to trust what you witnessed. You do not need their apology to validate the harm, and you do not need one final conversation with a person who broke reality to be allowed to rejoin your own. That is closure. Not getting the answer you wanted. Learning that the answer already arrived in the pattern. The door is locked. The withdrawal will pass. You survive a playbook. But as the dust settles, a quieter terror begins to rise. You realize this was not the first time. The face was different. The details changed, but the pattern was the same. So the real question is no longer just, why did they do this? It becomes something more uncomfortable. Why do they keep finding you? Or worse, why does part of you keep recognizing them as familiar? Like, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified, because next up, episode 7, The Echo, Why You Attract Toxic People. We are going to stop looking at the predator and start looking at the blueprint you carry inside you. The old wound, the old training, the old emotional architecture that toxic people mistake for an invitation. This is the quiet autopsy. I don't judge them. I study them, and I show you the unspoken rules, so you stop mistaking patterns for accidents.